Okay, so as trailed not so long ago, you can see that the KV-2 camo auction is now live and another whale camo is being brought into the game. But let's be honest up front, whether you agree with the auction or not, this format is, in my view, considerably better than the E100 long haul camo auction. And we're going to get into the details as to why that is. But there's also still some room for improvement. Wargaming, so I know you watch all of my stuff. Please pay attention because I've got a couple of tips for you that might make this a little bit more player friendly. So let's get into it. And we will start with the format of this auction. And up front, you will see that I have made a bid. And that is purely in the interest of science because I'll discuss later on the confusion that has come with this particular version of the auction. But nevertheless, we are involved, and as you can see, the first major improvement is the number of camos that are available. There's approximately 9,568. It won't be that exact number because there are some numbers, again, that have been eliminated due to legal reasons, whatever those might be. But nevertheless, a significant number of camos available, so more players can get involved. And the starting bid of 3,000 gold is not entirely unreasonable for a legendary camo. So starting off quite cheap as well. Other thing that I think is a major improvement is the camo lots have been broken down into 10 individual groups, with group number 1 being camo 1 to 949, group 2 950 to 1922, and group 3, which I'm currently sat in, and we'll talk about that in a second, but 1923 to 2884, and so on and so on. As you can see, the competitive bid for those three groups is completely different because this version of the auction now gives you an indication of how much you need to bid in order to get into a particular group of numbers. So I bid 3,000 at the very start of the auction. I was in group 1 when I did that because I bid very early on, and I have now been bumped down to group number 3 because players have bid more than I have in order to get to those top positions. So currently, if you're looking at the auction right now, the minimum bid is 3,000, and if you bid 3,000, you are going to end up in group number 3 or number 4, because group 4 onwards down to number 10 do not have any bids. But if you want to compete for camo 0001, you are going to have to bid over 10,000 gold because that is the competitive price. And in my mind, that is a much better system than the E100 long haul camo, where you had no idea where to bid, either to get a number of any description at all, or to compete for camo number 1. And of course, we know that in the end, the long haul 0001 camo was over 2 million gold. So those, to me, are significant improvements. And whether or not you're a fan of the auction, this is much more user-friendly, much more player-friendly, and gives you a clear indication of what you need to bid, noting that there are only 3,700 participants as we speak at the moment. If you just wanted to get the camo, you don't need to bid any more than 3,000 gold because there are still plenty of camos available at the lower price. So that is the good news. What is the bad news? Well, there's still some room for improvement on the communication here because the information about this particular auction does not give us all of the information that we need. So the first bit that I think needs improvement here is information on the auction stages. What we do know is this, that is a 2-day auction. And again, there's going to be a last chance, a final call, and every time a bid is placed within the final 10 minutes, that upsets who is going to get one of the camos, then that 10 minutes is going to reset itself. But this doesn't actually tell us how long the last chance final stage is going to last for. As you can see, the auction either ends 10 minutes after the last such bid has been placed, or when the maximum duration of this stage expires, ever comes first. Now, in the previous auction, The shorter auctions had a final call of 1 or 2 hours, I think. I can't quite remember. But the long haul camo, because that was a 2 day auction, that had an extension period of 24 hours. So I can only assume that the KV-2 auction could have a final call last chance stage that could last up to 24 hours. This doesn't actually tell us, so it's not actually possible to work that out other than just assuming that it's similar to the last auction. And of course, that is based on knowing what happened in the previous auction, and not every player out there may necessarily know that. The other thing that needs to be improved slightly if they're going to do this again is the breakdown of the camos into different lots, the 10 groups within the same auction. I wasn't quite sure reading this whether group number 1, camo 1 to 949, that auction was going to take place first, and once those camos had gone, group 2 would then be auctioned, and then group 3 would be auctioned, or as is the case, all groups are being auctioned at the same time. That's one of the reasons why I made a bid, was just to see how that would work. So they are all being auctioned at the same time. It's not individual group by groups. It is a simultaneous concurrent auction, I guess, for all 10 lots. So that is something, again, that would need to be improved should they decide to do this again. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on the rocket numbered camouflage for the KV-2. I think these rockets actually fire off into the distance. Hopefully they won't do any HP damage to your tank if you're on the receiving end of it. But there you go. There are some improvements. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Again, do you agree or disagree with the auction as a concept? And irrespective of that view, do you think that this version is better? I do think it's slightly better, but again, with a couple of areas for improvement. And having bid 3,000 gold and currently being sat in group number 3 with less than 24 hours to go, pending the final call last stage extension, do you think I'm going to get one of these camos? And if I do, which number do you think I might get? Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have found this useful.